thank you. I like that hashtag Ira. I think that's going to be my new b-boy name. Shout out to Rob Humphrey for that one. So no dancing anymore, I promise, at least until happy hour. I'm really excited to bring on our next presenter that we partnered with on this new research on the return on education. So we've talked a lot about ROI, return on investment from the marketer's perspective, but what is the return on education from the student's perspective? So we partnered with the EMBAC Council, and Michael Desiderio is the executive director of EMBAC, and he's here with me to present this research to you for the first time today. So please welcome to the stage Michael Desiderio. Thank you.
Thanks, Ira. One of the things that's exciting about the research we're going to share with you today is how we arrived here, but I'll leave that for later. Part of what is interesting is Magda from Tulane in the audience somewhere? So Magda is from one of our member schools, and she connected myself and Ira and Saeed under a different framework, to be quite frank. And as we started talking, it was clear to me that one of the things that was obvious we should do is find a way to tap the wealth of information that is the network that resides within LinkedIn's hands. So we're really excited about this partnership. It's not only been great to tap into the data, but it's really been great to work with them, and the folks behind the scene have been amazing. One of the things that I heard an earlier presenter say was, ask questions that matter. And we at EMBAC, and I should tell you, for those of you that don't know who we are, we're an association of business schools that cater to those that offer executive MBA programs. So we have over 200 member schools offering more than 300 executive MBA programs in nearly 40 countries. We've been around for about 36 years. What's interesting about the questions you ask is sometimes you get answers maybe you didn't want to hear. So for those of you that are marketers or those of us that are in the space of trying to provide members or customers with information, we need to keep that in mind. And I want to share something with you. I have a 7-year-old son. His name's Michael Jr. I call him Michael J. And when Michael J was 5, he entered kindergarten. He was in an after-school program. And I went to pick him up one day, and there was this little 5-year-old girl just staring at me. And I could feel her eyes burning on my face. And I looked over at her, and I smiled, and I said, "Hi." And she looked up at me, and she said, "Are you his granddad?" And I got down on a knee, and I said, no, I'm actually his dad." I said, "But I know, it's this gray hair. Is that what it is?" She said, "Yeah, you look really old." So if we're going to ask questions that matter, sometimes we're going to get answers we're not prepared for, but we still have to deal with those. The good news with this research is I think we have much good news and some things that are opportunities for us as an industry and also for the MBA space. Part of what we did, once we realized we were going to start asking questions to the EMBA alumni that are out there on LinkedIn, it made sense to also ask MBA. Professional, part-time, and we've sort of captured that on the side here for you. So we've segmented it into 2 ways, at least for today's presentation. Those that responded as an EMBA alum of program, and then those that responded in the MBA category, aggregating these different types together, full-time, professional, part-time, and online. You can see the sample sizes there, so 1,000 people responded for EMBA, nearly 1,900 for MBA as the way we defined it. You can see the gender breakout. So decent representation. And here were the questions that we were trying to get answers to. The story we were trying to understand was, what's the impact been to your career? Everybody wants to know about salary. By design, we did not call this survey return on investment. We do exit surveys, and that's typically what we talk about. It was one of our colleagues from EMBAC, my board chair actually, said, let's call it return on education, because even the framing can impact how we think about things. But we asked the salary question, and we'll talk about that. What were the things that people thought about when they were trying to make the decision on whether or not to attend an MBA or an EMBA program? What were the factors they considered? And how did we deliver on those factors? And then obviously, you know, are these graduates, are they engaged on LinkedIn? So this is the global breakout, so decent representation globally. You can see that the top number is for EMBA, the bottom number is for MBA. And so we feel pretty good about the representation in the survey. So it's not just a North American survey or a European survey or an Asian survey. It's got good split across all of the regions that we were trying to capture. So everybody wants the bottom line, right? Those are the key findings. What did we find out? Well, we found out some things that I think weren't sort of shocking. There were some things that were surprising, and then, of course, there was a few things that left us saying, well, we've got to find a way to do better. And so we're going to cover all of that, and I want to show you some data. So we asked those taking the survey, did it have a significant impact? Did your program, did your experience as an MBA or an EMBA, did it have a significant impact on your career progression? And we framed that in a way that said salary increases, promotions, started your own business, a variety of factors. And 72% on the EMBA side said that it did, in fact, have a significant impact on their career progression. You can see it was a little bit higher for MBA. And again, so good news, not shocking. People keep coming back to these programs, so hopefully they're having an impact. If there are data wonks in the audience, I want to make sure that as you take pictures of this slide that I frame this correctly. What we're talking about here is an increase in salary. So if you look at the 0 to 5 years, 28% for EMBA and 36% for MBA. When you get beyond this, the 0 to 5 and go further out from the degree experience, we recognize that the further out you get, the more factors that are impacting the salary piece of the equation. It's true even when you look at 0 to 5, but certainly the further out you get, there will be people that double their salary 10, 15 years into their career, may even triple it, right? So we understand that. So we're looking down at the 28% increase in salary and 36%. If you look at this slide, the vertical axis is not dollars. What we did is we had one of our statisticians go ahead and try to make it easier to understand the reporting on currency, because people reported in their native currency. And then when you start to look across a period that I'm showing you up to 15 years, we actually asked beyond there. And you start taking into account inflation rates, currency fluctuations. We had to find a way to sort of make this simpler, so they created an index for us. So it's not dollars that you're seeing there. So that's why I want you to focus on the percentage increase. We do exit surveys at EMBAC that I alluded to, and part of what we found is this tracks with us. We typically see double-digit returns, lower than this, frankly, but it's realistic to see this kind of a return. So that was good news. The other thing was the decision factors. So as people participate in the career journey, there's always a different place in time that each of them might be. And obviously, there's a set of decision factors that drive them to make the decision whether or not to attend an EMBA program, an MBA program, or whatever it might be as far as their professional development. So what we did is we lined up a set of factors and asked people to rate them as far as their importance as they tried to make the decision to enter into an EMBA program. And we took the top two boxes with those responses, and you can see that business knowledge and skills came in at 79% of the people said that's what was driving their decision. And you can see second and third and on down the line. What's interesting is from there, then we asked the next follow-on question is, okay, you told us what was important to you in making the decision. Now that you're out of the program, how did your program deliver on the things that were important to you? It's great to ask the question, what was important to you, but once you're through the experience, how did these programs deliver on those items? And if you look at this, it's interesting because the top three, really all of them, align. It's both 1, 2, 3 through 7. They all align across the framework there. And what's interesting to me is business knowledge and skills, pretty good parity, 79%, 73%. As you go down, while the alignment is there, clearly there's a potential to figure out how do we serve those needs better. Because there was a population that said leadership capabilities, high importance, 66%, still did okay, still above 50%, but that gap is bigger than it was in the one above. And that's true with some of these other metrics. So I think to us as educators on the EMBA side, one of the things we need to be considering is how do we close those gaps? Part of what this research entailed was other questions. We don't have time to get into all of those today, but Ira's going to cover additional things that we have talked about on the MBA side and then connected to Net Promoter Score. I'm going to stay around for Q&A, and if we don't have enough time later, I'm here for the next days, so happy to talk afterwards as well.
Great, thank you, Michael. So looking at the MBA audience, using that same question methodology that Michael just explained, we asked them what the top decision factors were. And similar to executive MBA, business knowledge and skills was #1. So that's great to know across the board. Business knowledge and skills is still the determining factor on getting their MBA or executive MBA degree. But we did see some differences. I think this is not a surprise to anyone. Ability to change your career trajectory and enhancing your earning potential are #2 and 3. So that's a big difference from executive MBA, where fulfillment was a little bit higher, and leadership. Not surprising because these are younger folks. They're earlier in their career. But it's definitely important to keep in mind as you're doing your marketing and your messaging. So looking at how that tracks to delivery, how well the MBA program delivered, we also see that there's really great alignment here, just like with the executive MBA programs. But here's where you also see the opportunities to improve. So again, looking at where the biggest gaps are between the percentages, and I've highlighted in blue the opportunities to improve. And it's really that ability to change career trajectory. So it's really all about that outcome, whether it's salary, increasing their chance for a promotion afterwards. So that makes the career services aspect of the student experience that much more important. So all this talk about the student journey, it doesn't stop after they enroll, why you need to start investing even as a marketer in the student journey, this is why. It really impacts the way that the program is delivered in the end. And that brings us to NPS score. So I'm sure we're all familiar with NPS. For those that aren't, that's a scale from -100 to +100 on how likely a customer is to recommend your business to a colleague or a friend. So in this case, how likely are your alumni willing to share or to recommend their program to a colleague or friend? So what we see here is there's an opportunity here. So executive MBA scored +38 and MBA +27. The 38's it's a good score. And I think I want to caveat this, that this is across all global programs, all executive MBA programs, so there's a really wide range of schools. But when we do research on what the typical NPS score is for higher education, we see numbers in the high 40s, low 50s. So on average, we definitely see there's an opportunity here for executive MBA and definitely for MBA. And I think when you look at the passives, the breakdown between promoters, detractors, and passives, that's your opportunity to move those passives into promoters. And I think the best way to do that for MBA is to focus on those key determining factors that I highlighted earlier. But what's really interesting is when you start to map this out by the year of graduation. So at the bottom here, we have it mapped out to when they graduated, in what year. And you can see a little red asterisk for where there's a low sample size below 50. So I want to make sure that there is a low sample, but the data is enough to give us directional knowledge. And we see two interesting things here. One, EMBA NPS is bouncing back in a big way in the last 3 years. The economy's done really well, and this is a huge sign to marketers to start taking advantage of that goodwill that alumni have or coming out that graduated in the last 3 years and start using them as testimonials. The other interesting thing here is, you see the dip in the middle. We all know what happened in 2008. So we definitely see how that affected NPS scores and the ability to use that executive MBA after the financial meltdown. But what's interesting is it's been about 7 years since that, and we just surveyed these folks this year. So even after 7 years, the NPS has not risen for these people that graduated in class of 2008 to 2011. So that just shows you how difficult it is to raise NPS scores after they graduate. So that, again, it shows the need for servicing the student while they're in the program and immediately after. And then we see the same thing with MBA. So no red asterisks here. We had a lot of sample here. So this is definitely a good global sample of what we saw over the years. And again, we see a nice uptick in the last 3 years. Not as much of a downturn during the financial crisis, but definitely see the NPS scores rising. Again, a great sign for us marketers in the room. So we wanted to ask, how active are these MBA and executive MBA grads on LinkedIn? And very happy to showcase that they are very active. So we didn't even ask this question. This was actually our data on the back end, analyzing their profiles and their engagement on LinkedIn. And what we found was that 93% of the MBA and executive MBA members surveyed have a quality profile. That's a great number. We define quality profile as, do they have a profile picture? Do they have a full educational background? Do they have a full company background? So basically everything you need to have a solid resume and get a job. 93% have a quality profile, so they're actively engaged on that part of LinkedIn. Over 55% have 500 plus connections, so a great majority are using LinkedIn to connect. And then these last two numbers are, I think, my favorite numbers as a LinkedIn marketer. 91% of executive MBA graduates have visited LinkedIn weekly, every week in the past 4 years. That's a great stat. The executive MBA alumni and MBA alumni, 84%, are engaging weekly. That's a great sign that they're coming back to use LinkedIn, and it's not just a job board. It's not just when they need to find their next play. So what are the marketing implications? Basically, number one, tailor your messaging to the top decision factors. I think we all know this. Business knowledge and skills are key, so definitely keep on hitting that in your marketing messaging. But keep in mind the nuances, the differences between executive MBA and MBA. Leadership and fulfillment. Jeff Salingo mentioned fulfillment, and those soft skills are still very important for executive MBA. And career trajectory and salary is definitely more important for MBA. So definitely make sure that you're including that in your marketing messaging. Number two, take advantage of those rising NPS scores. So now is the time to start connecting with the alumni and the career services and building that connected school that we've been talking about, to tap into those testimonial stories. Enable your alumni to be your best advocates. Give them the content and the information that they can easily share with their colleagues and peers and share that great story. You know, we talk about how authentic messaging is so important, authentic experiences. What better than having a friend recommend the program to another friend? And then third, use LinkedIn to engage active alumni. So it can be organic messaging, paid messaging, like Tomer mentioned, that flywheel of organic and paid together, can really help encourage your alumni to share stories. When we asked alumni what types of content they want to hear from their alma maters, it's really about school news, like what's going on in the school, what are the new programs that you're launching, you know, what are the information about faculty that they can share, faculty that they can stay connected with. So share that on your social networks and keep that alumni engaged. And then use LinkedIn to build your community. So we are reinvesting in groups. There's ways to target your content to alumni using sponsored content. And then, like I mentioned, keeping that organic content, program news, updates, new donations. That's the type of stuff that alumni want to hear, and that's what they want to stay connected with the school. So with that, I'd like to conclude the session. We want to leave about, let's see, we have about 3 minutes for a Q&A. So we have some mic runners. Go ahead and raise your hand, and Michael and I can answer your questions. Yes.
Hi, I'm Sparsh. I work for LinkedIn.
Oh, hi, Sparsh.
The data that you showed on what people are looking for from an EMBA/MBA program was very surprising to me. Especially number 7 on that list was the ability to improve your professional network. Mm-hmm. Like I went to an MBA program, and anecdotally, if I was to ask any of my friends, they'd say the number 1 value of going for an MBA is to expand your professional network. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we were surprised by that as well, because we do some entry surveys at EMBAC, and you're right, the network tends to be more highly placed. Now, the mix of students tends to be different. When we do our entry surveys, primarily it's US-based. This is clearly skewed in a different way, split pretty much equally around the world. So we're going to dive into the data a little bit more, but we're not sure either, to be frank, because it was surprising to us as well. As I said, when you ask those questions that matter, sometimes you get some surprises.
And I thought there was one interesting thing. When we looked at the gender breakdown of how they answered that question, we have to look at it to see if there was significant difference. But we found that men were more likely to say that the network mattered going in, but women were the most likely to say that the MBA delivered on that. So I think there might be a case of that might not be top of mind, but after the fact, it's something that they're really glad that they had when they accomplished their degree. But we'll definitely dive into that. Any other questions?
For the MBA, did you separate out part-time versus full-time MBA? Because we've done this at Northeastern, including net promoter scores, and we've noticed pretty big differences between those two groups.
Yes, we do
Yeah.
have the ability to cut it by full-time and part-time. We wanted to make sure that we had a good sample size for this audience. Full-time, actually, we definitely have enough to track it.
Yeah.
So we can definitely release that in time. But we definitely see, it was pretty similar. When you look at
It was.
NPS scores, it was very similar compared
For
to
full-time anyway.
Yeah.
But we do have part-time. Online, I think the sample's a little small, but part-time and professional seem to be enough to be able to report that.
And just curious, what was the differences that you saw between full-time and part-time?
One was that we found that, to the earlier comment, part-timers were much less interested in expanding their professional network. They were really focused on the end result. And full-timers were more interested in the total experience, including the network. And then overall, our net promoter scores were higher in the full-time, which was sort of immersing themselves in the experience, and part-timers were sort of less satisfied overall. Even though the curriculum was the same, the environment was pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Probably have time for one more, maybe?
One more question.
So, Ira, how much of that insight with respect to active users is going to be brought into the hands of the marketer? Is that something that you're planning on doing over time, is giving us the ability to tailor that data or those segments to our own alumni audience or our own users?
Well, you have the ability to target your alumni already. So you can target sponsored content according to what school they graduated from. Is that what you're looking for?
No, I'm referring specifically to understanding how active they are on the platform.
Got it. I actually don't know that. That would be a good question for Tomer at happy hour. But I definitely know that there is a lot of data that you can get on alumni using our alumni tool, and we are looking to expand that even more now that we have university pages and company pages aligned. But that's currently our only offering for data on your alumni, which I think is still really one of our best kept secrets, diving into that alumni tool and drilling down on the different segments of your alumni. And I think that's all the time we have for questions. Once again, I'd like to thank Michael Desiderio from EMBAC.
You bet. And we're around.
Yeah, we're around. Thank you.